Hello everyone, my name is Loco and welcome to some more StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. In this video, I'm gonna go over two things. First off, I'm gonna be talking about the current state of Zerg versus Protoss, and then I also want to be showing you some strategies that you can execute. So in this specific game, I'm gonna be showing you a way to deal with Cannon Rush, and I'm also gonna show you a way to deal with any kind of super weird Adept Void Ray shenanigans, because that's exactly what I've been struggling with a lot. So as it is right now, in Legacy of the Void, I am struggling a lot against Protoss. I still have a pretty good win rate against them. I still think I have like 45%. But for the majority of those games, I win because my opponents are playing a very hard the swarm style game. The guys that are actually playing Legacy of the Void, and with Legacy of the Void I mean like very adept Stargate heavy, which isn't very common in Heart of the Swarm at all. Obviously adepts aren't, you know, played at all because they don't exist. But like the guys that play a Legacy of the Void type style, so for example adepts into Void Rays, or adepts into carriers, or maybe some, you know, early game aggression into War Prison play and warping in Zealots and, you know, charging in my mineral lines and all these things, I'm having a ton of trouble against Protoss in general. Now, the one thing that I've been struggling with the most is actually the fact that my opponents get a lot of air units. And when they get a lot of air units, I'm like, well, what do I do? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to go Corruptor because Void Rays just shred them. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to go for Hydras because everything else just shreds Hydras. You know, most notably Adepts because they do bonus damage against Light and they're already very strong as it is. And then also, I can't really go for Parasitic Bomb very easily at all because Parasitic Bomb doesn't really work against carriers. So in general, I've been having a lot of struggle against Protoss in particular. And in this specific game, I actually am going to try and execute a strategy that I've seen a couple of other Zerg players play. And it's something that I was actually trying out for the first time in this game, so by no means is my execution well or very good at all, but I've seen a couple of you comment as well in the comment section of the video saying, hey, how do you deal with Stargate play? And this seems to be a very good option. I played a couple games with this style. I think this is the best example game that I could find yesterday. But first off, anyways, we're gonna be opening up right here with some defense to a Cannon Rush. So my opponent is playing, you know, Protoss, so he decides to say, hi, hey, I like your videos, and that seems to be a very common trend, by the way, where your opponent is like, hey, I like your videos, let's Cannon Rush you, or cheese you, or double proxy gate you, or whatever. But anyways, so to kill cannons, you need to actually put 3 drones on each building cannon. If you put 3 drones on a building cannon, you will be able to kill it in time. If it's already built a little bit, you gotta put 4 drones on there instead. Now, you gotta make sure that you're actually attacking not the pylons too much. Obviously, you want to prioritize killing cannons because those actually do damage. As long as you have 3 on them, usually you should be okay. Now, obviously, since you go for a hatch into a spawning pool, most of the time your Zerglings should come out in time, and in this specific game, I do manage to defend it just fine. There's a couple different variations right now of Cannon Rush going around. If you are having a lot of trouble with it, and you cannot micro the way that I just showed you in this game, by all means, just go for a spawning pool first and never die to Cannon Rushes again, okay? Obviously, it's pretty stressful to be dealing with these sort of things. I'll be honest though, the more you deal with it, the easier it becomes, and this is the very reason why you don't really see it at the pro level. Those players have already dealt with this strategy about a gazillion times, and yes, that is a number. No, but they've already dealt with Cannon Rush like, you know, a couple hundred times, and at that point it becomes relatively easy to just control your drones, click very calmly at what unit is building, and if it's a pylon or a cannon, and then you can just target fire down. But general consensus, put 3 drones on a building cannon if you get there in time and it's just starting up. Put 4 on there if it's a little bit longer, and just pull drones. So at this point in the game, he didn't do any drone damage, I don't think. He killed 1 worker in total, and we are going to be at a slight advantage. Now, worker-wise, it's not going to make that big of a difference, but we are going to have a lot of time right now where we can just basically do whatever we please. So, that's the first part of the video. That's the first bit of what I want to discuss. Second bit is a whole lot more complicated and a whole lot more interesting, I guess, as well. So Cannon Rushes is something all of you have seen, but the strategy that I want to be going for right here, even though we are planning on countering air units, is actually a style that focuses around melee upgrades and Zerglings. So I am going for the double upgrades very early on right here, and I will be transitioning towards the lair afterwards. And the idea behind this is that we get a lot of Zerglings to deal with any kind of aggression of him. Obviously, if he goes Blank Stalker or whatever, we will be able to stop that. But most importantly, we can actually use these Zerglings to try and deny him from getting a 3rd base up, to just, you know, run across the map and kill any kind of proxy pylons, and to basically just be an annoyance. And I've noticed that most of the time I lose games once they go up to 3-4 bases. Once they get 3 bases up, it is very hard to actually attack into them because they have such a big carrier ball usually, or like Void Ray ball or whatever. And once they get that going, it's very difficult to stop them from you know, not getting that massive air lead. Now, I've noticed that if you go for Zerglings upgraded, and I don't actually know if I do it very well in this game, you can actually snipe down third bases very easily. +1/+1 Zerglings are significantly stronger than, you know, normal Zerglings. And right here, I'm scouting around. I'm like, okay, so he went for nothing too scary. He went for some cannon rushes early on, and now he's transitioning into a Stargate, and he's going to start producing some Phoenixes. So I've already seen right now that he's going for Phoenixes as well. Do want to put down some creep tumors. Ideally, though, I would position my Zerglings right now at the third base. I'm not sure what they would do here. Like I'm talking about, you do want to deny that third base, especially if you see them open up Phoenix, because they won't have anything on the ground to try and stop you from, you know, to try and stop you from killing that third base. But anyways, so the strategy right here early on is not so much to focus on a lot of Zerglings alone and to switch really quickly into Hydras to deal with air units, but to instead make extra Queens. And Queens is the one unit that I have not been using very much, honestly. And I've noticed that pretty much every single Zerg streamer out there has been playing very aggressively with the Queen. So right here you can see me scout that third base, do get the cancel on it, and I know right now that he's gonna have a hard time trying to get this thing up because, hey, he doesn't really have very many units. Now at this point in time, what I'm doing is making Queens, and I'm making drones. So Queens and drones, and very quickly I do want to transition towards a hive. Now, the idea of transitioning towards a hive is not so much for Vipers, but actually for Ultralisk. So the idea behind the composition is to play Zerglings with Adrenal Glands and heavy upgrades, obviously. Have Ultralisk to clean up everything on the ground as well, but most importantly to tank a lot of damage. But then have Queens out there to actually dish out damage to air units, and then also to actually be add on there to be healing up the Ultralisk. So obviously Queens have transfuse. If you get a lot of Queens, they're gonna start saving up a lot of energy, and eventually you will be able to get a ton of stuff on there. Now I do get there once again with Zerglings. I think I could have gotten a cancel on this thing if I made a couple more Zerglings. I've been playing a little too greedy, and like I said, I haven't been practicing this all too much yet. And there you see the pylon overcharge right there, dishing out a little bit too much damage, so I just barely do not get the kill on that Nexus. But either way, the idea behind this strategy is to go for Zerglings and a bunch of Ravagers early on to deal with any kind of early game aggression depending on what we see from the opponent. Start adding on that Queen count, so start making a ton of Queens. Obviously still some Spore Crawlers to deal with any kind of shenanigans that he has. And actually use the Queens to later on transfuse Ultralisk in the late game. Now, obviously, we do need to check what is going on. Let's say he's going heavy Void Ray and he doesn't have anything else. Hydras are going to be a good addition, or just simply more Queens. Or let's say he's going heavily into Carriers and he doesn't have that many Void Rays. Switching towards Corruptors is a great idea. If he's going Tempest even, we can also be going for a bunch of Corruptors there and kill them that way. Or if he's going like heavy Phoenixes, we could even decide to add on Vipers as well to, you know, use that Parasitic Bomb. So there's a couple different options. You do still need to scout around, but the main meat of your army, I guess you could say, would be the Queens. And that is something that I haven't played very much with myself yet, and it's honestly surprisingly good. You will see very shortly my opponent will try and do some damage to the Queens that I got with the Phoenixes, and Phoenixes absolutely do nothing against Queens at all. And I feel like Queens are pretty underused in that scenario. So right now, we are just trying to drone up right now. I'm trying to spread some creep because eventually these Queens will need to get across the map as well. And, you know, 2-2 finishes up right now. Normally I play super aggressive, but right now I'm just playing trying to be very safe here. Making more drones, getting that Ultra Cavern up. Very shortly, I do also want to be starting up that Adrenal Glands upgrade for the Zerglings, making them significantly stronger. But right here, he's lifting up the Queens, and look how much damage they do. Absolutely nothing. Like, he didn't even do any damage right there, I don't think. Like, that was a pretty crazy amount of Phoenixes right there, and he didn't even do, like, a little bit of damage right there. Hydras would have been picked off easily, because Phoenixes actually do bonus damage against them. And knowing that my opponent already was producing Corruptor, or Void Rays, switching towards Corruptors right now doesn't make sense either, because Corruptors do bonus damage against Void Ray, or, yeah, no, sorry. Corruptors do very well against Phoenixes, but very bad against Void Rays, because Void Rays do bonus damage against Corruptors. And Hydralisk do very well against Phoenix, or against Void Rays, but the Phoenixes do bonus damage against it. So right now I'm just trying to scout around, trying to figure out what his army is containing of, and I see, okay, my opponent is going Phoenix, Phoenix, Void Ray, Adept. That seems to be his unit composition right now. And I can deal with that by just simply making more and more Queens, getting getting the adrenal glands upgrade, getting the +3/+3 upgrades as well. And eventually, I'm actually also going to be switching towards a bunch of infestors, because the idea right here is that if I can fungal it and actually use the corrosive bio ability of the ravages that I got, and I do have that 13 ranged upgrade right now, I can also be dealing some damage right there. So there's different kinds of concepts going on right here, but it's been really cool to check out these sort of weird strategies that I'm not used to at all, and that actually turn out to be surprisingly efficient. Now, in this specific game, I actually have a pretty poor engagement in a little bit. This map is pretty bad as far as all the chokes go and whatnot. I actually end up fighting right here against the Protoss player. You guys will figure that out in a little bit. But I'm just getting the Spire right now to potentially switch into Corruptors as well if I do end up killing most of his army. And I'm just trying to do as much damage as possible. Now, we do still have that bug right there where the the Ultralisk are on roller skates, just trying to do whatever damage they can. They are actually attacking right now. It's just a replay bug. But I'm going to be pushing forward right here very shortly. Adrenal Glands is done. We got the chitinous plating finishing up right now. And I'm going to move forward right here with the Ultralisk a little bit. Now, I got a lot of Queens here and a ton of Transfuse. Now, Ultralisk in Legacy of the Void are extremely powerful. I'm just trying to hit all the Transfuse right now, making sure that that thing doesn't die. I do end up doing a little bit of damage to my own Ultralisk right there with my own Ravagers. I'm just trying to heal it up, trying to tank so much damage. But all of those Adepts just ended up falling to like two, what was it? Like 2 Ultralisk and a couple of Ravagers as well. Maybe the Queen's doing a little bit, but most of those Adepts actually just died to those Ultralisk. And since my opponent doesn't really have anything to deal with the Ultralisk other than Void Race, I am going to have a pretty good field there right now, because I can keep this Ultra alive for such a long time. So right now he's once again lifting up the units, he's trying to do whatever he can, but I am having Zerglings and Ultralisk reinforcing this. Now keep in mind, I am also switching towards Corruptors if I need to. If I manage to clean up all of these Void Rays, I will definitely do so. And on top of that, I also have the Infestors good to go. Now Zerglings are surprisingly good as well, but look what stayed alive of this entire army while all of this shenanigans was going on. It's actually the Queens. Like, I lost a bunch of Queens here as well, but these Queens are being extremely beefy, and they're doing very, very well. Gotta keep in mind, I'm not even remotely transfusing perfectly right here. I am not using my corrosive bio ability nearly as often as I should, and I'm just trying to do about 16 things at once right now. But these Ultralisk and Queens work extremely well versus air compositions. Even though I don't really kill the air very quickly, as long as the Ultras are on the ground and they're killing everything that is on the ground, this seems to be a composition that has a lot of potential, and it's something that I really did want to share with you guys. So the Zerglings obviously extremely good at cleaning up everything right now. The Adrenal Glands obviously kicking in right here. +3/+3 Adrenal Gland Zerglings do a ton of damage. And while I do not clean up the entire air army just yet, and while my opponent still has a bunch of Void Rays ready to go, we have just massacred the base. Like, everything that stayed alive for so long because of all the Transfuse and because of the crazy amount of armor that they have, that it's just, you know, killing everything. So even if I would trade extremely cost inefficient right here, and even though I'm losing much more army than my opponent did, the fact that I got 4 bases mining behind this, and I actually have my finished up 5th base as well that I could start mining from, and that I'm just slowly but surely killing one of his mining bases, is gonna give me the long-term benefit. But still, if they do manage to max out with a massive amount of air units, I'm still having trouble, and I'm still not completely sure against it, against those kind of compositions. But hopefully this at the very least gave you a little bit of an idea of something you can try and execute against air units. I'm still struggling against it myself, but this is definitely something that has a ton of potential. So what I would like to say is start making Queens, get those melee upgrades going, switch to Ultralisk and Adrenal Glands, and then decide on what you see mostly from the air units. Add on Infestors, add on Corruptors, add on Hydras, sometimes even Mutalisk, add on Parasitic Bomb right there, just depending on what you scout from your Protoss opponent. But I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day, do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next one.